Let me remind all of ourselves to cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. With that kind of bodhicitta motivation, that we should all participate in this teaching. Whether we are a spiritual teacher or playing the role of a spiritual teacher and speakers, or whether we are playing the role of listeners or the audience, it is very important for all of ourselves to find out with our own state of mind accords with spirituality or dharma. In other words, there should not be disparity between our way of thinking, our mindset, and what we learn in dharma or spirituality. As we investigate our own state of mind to find out whether our own mindset or way of thinking it agrees with or accords with spiritual teachings or dharma teachings, and if we do find out that our mind and dharma are in concordance with each other or agree with each other, well, we have every good reason to rejoice in this state of mind. But on the other hand, if we find that our mind and dharma are in disparity, then we should not just simply just kind of ignore it. It is okay. This is how it is, But rather, we should make efforts to, if you will, correct this state of being. We should make efforts to let go our way of thinking that does not accord with dharma, and see that our mind and dharma, they, if you will, collude. They come together with each other. As individuals who take interest in spiritual teaching or dharma teaching, in our everyday life, all of us, I'm speaking to myself as a spiritual teacher and to you as my audience, that in our everyday life, we really need to reflect on whether our actions of body, speech, and mind, what we do physically, what we say verbally, and what we think mentally, whether they are harmful to other sentient beings or not, whether we do something physically, verbally, and mentally that hurts others, or the things we do that are beneficial to others, because that's a really important thing for us to find out, how our actions, bring about, things which are harmful or beneficial to other beings.
The how course na single never written someone pang to shelters.
So as we engage in that kind of self-examination, investigation, to find out about our own actions, our body, spirit, and mind, and if we do find that our actions are harmful to others or bring harms to others, then we really need to correct ourselves. We need to modify our actions of body, spirit, and mind. But on the other hand, we may find our actions beneficial to others. So when do we really need to do that? If you ask that question to ourselves, we cannot just kind of make a plan to do this some another time, procrastinate it, I'll do later time or tomorrow. We really need to act now. In this present moment, if as we look at our mind, and if our actions of body, spirit, and mind do not accord with dharmas, then we act now to modify our behaviors and actions. But if they do accord with dharma, then we need to promote them or enhance them. All our holy spiritual masters or the gurus have unanimously said that the first thing what we need to do is we have to educate ourselves in the matters of Dharma. So we develop the knowledge, spiritual knowledge or the Dharma knowledge. Once we have that knowledge or the understanding, then the next thing is even more important. That is, we have to implement the teachings. We have to cultivate spirituality, because that's the whole purpose of spiritual education. If we know so much intellectually or academically, but we really never, think of putting it into practice, then we are, similar to a poor guy, who knows so much about economics and how much money people have in their bank accounts or balance sheet, whatever, but himself or herself does have nothing, So we do not want to be in that kind of a situation where we know so much, but in reality, what we have is zero.
That balance is do you kill a kangape? Hope to get to
Well, I really do not mean to say that we have to be perfect to, as we begin doing everything, because it is a process. It takes time for us to modify our actions of body, spirit, and mind, to get rid of the negativities. It is a process we have to go through, and it takes time and so many steps to go through. But nonetheless, we need to make efforts to do that. Even if it means taking the step number 1 now, we need to get it there, try to do that. So we need to start from small, simple things, and then we learn to do, more, complex and advanced practices. We may find ourselves, holding great expectations of our own spiritual journey or practice. We say, okay, now I decided to do a spiritual practice, so therefore it means this is what I want, thing to happen. So we may have a great expectation or expectations of ourselves as spiritual practitioners.
Well,
to hold great expectations of ourselves in some way is a disservice to ourselves. You see, that's not how things work, really. As great, experienced masters have got this to say, that when it comes to abandoning, getting rid of delusions or deluded states of mind, first we have to work with what we call the coarser level of delusions, which are relatively speaking easy to notice and easy to get rid of. But in terms of spiritual accomplishment or cultivation, in terms of realization, we just expect the small realizations come first, So in terms of abandonment, we try to get rid of more predominant delusions, more grosser form of delusions, gross forms of delusion, if you will. But in terms of spiritual realization, we just have to, start getting small, if you will, units of realization, and then advance our spiritual development. So we really need to think about what we can do that benefits us, here and now, this life, and also things which will benefit our future lives as well. We really need to take care of this life as well as our future lives. So if we really take time to think about, what can we do that is beneficial to us here and now in this lifetime, and which will also benefit our future lives. So as we pursue that kind of investigation, if you will, or analysis, so we'll find out is all the worldly accomplishments, which includes becoming rich and famous, bold and beautiful, and all other things you just said, they maybe really seem important, but their benefits are very limited to just this lifetime. Only in this life maybe they do bring certain benefits to us, because we got the power, we got the money, we got the beauty, we got the, look, and we got the everything, name and fame, and all of the above. But once we say goodbye here, well, they cannot follow us. That's it. But if we juxtapose spirituality or dharma to all of those things, which we may consider very important, it's like, but dharma is something not only really has meaning, brings meaning to our life now, but once we leave this world, it follows us, and it's even accompanies us and brings meaning in our future lives. So we recognize that dharma or spirituality is of tremendous benefit to this life and to future lives, of course. But that being said, when we engage in spiritual actions and practices, our motivation should be such that we are doing it to benefit our future lives, not to think about this life. So don't be preoccupied. But that, so that our motivation is not tainted by worldly attitudes and concerns, how to be rich and beautiful and all of that here. That may very well happen, as we do good practice and all that. So, but we really don't have to think about that. We only concern more about the betterment of our future lives. So let me emphasize this again. When we cultivate motivation to engage in spiritual actions and practices, our motivation should not have anything to do with, the worldly concerns of this lifetime. We should only be thinking about the benefits of future lifetimes. We should not be concerned, okay, if somehow I get involved in Dharma, so then that might, somehow make me famous and very popular somehow. Or that somehow maybe something happens and then I become very rich and very influential. Now, those concerns should not be the part of our equation, Dharma equation here. We should not think about those. Those things may happen, but our really motivation has to be very pure in the sense that it's all oriented towards fulfilling the betterment of future lives. So now, as I'm kind of trying to say, let us not, include any worldly concerns of this lifetime in the Dharma motivation. Then somebody might wonder, well, then how does it work? Well, how could Dharma benefit? If I'm not thinking about this life, so all these other concerns which seem important to me, so how could Dharma benefit this life then? So as we talk about, spiritual cultivation or practice, some of the core values that we are trying to cultivate are, we want to cultivate love and compassion and kindness and generosity and all of those things, right, to and for other sentient beings. Now, when we started to do that, we are not faking, we are not acting, but we really truly mean it, that we started to, develop love and compassion for other beings. Then really what happens is that our mind is really transforming. See that? It's subdued. Maybe before we were very delusional and negative. Now our mind is really changed and very subdued and is becoming positive thinking. And as that happens, when we are in a positive state of mind, we never think of harming anybody. We are never going to bring harm to other beings in the society. And so everybody really seems to enjoy our company, and the things work much better.
So that number of you drew in, and send the show Shamanikale, send the Danyua, Rankiba, Yinshiba, that indicated pay Rangus, Miss Gurney, the Tenda Machine, of course, Shole, and in those in the time to do something with Tommy Juris. So
when we really truly practice Dharma and transform our state of mind from negative into positive or neutral into positive, whatever the case may be, and when we really show care and love to and for others, others start to respond positively to our attitudes and actions, positive. So in that way, we see that not only things have changed so much positively within us, but in the environment as well. Now we started to have really less and less enemies, the so-called, and we started to have more and more genuine friends. We are building friendships with people and sentient beings. So in that way, as we keep ourselves happy state of mind, positive state of mind, we also bring happiness to other, other people, you see. So it is a win-win situation, isn't it, right? We are happy, others are happy.
No, that send the chair put you drew in the window to the rank, said that the show Shamaniga, don't die, Yapujun drew.
So what I'm really trying to get across to you is that if we truly cultivate Dharma or spirituality, then you see, not only do we get the benefits, but through us, we're also benefiting other beings. As we change into positive people, let's say, positive state of mind, we are really not, I want to use the words that Geshe didn't say. So anyway, cut, I'm having my director, cut that. So when we are happy, we are positive, and so then, we make those positive contributions to the environment, the society, and people around us.
And that, just doing it, Penna. So she showed them to any rank than that drunken down, and power down, Shangi Sabbath again, bringing in body, and Debuga, Tobja down, and that Cheva Kandiki meet around the Sanji, but the Cheva Kandino students. That they Tony Haku.
So in order to really get a sense of the tremendous benefits of practicing Dharma or spirituality, right? So we need to do social comparisons here so that find out where we are and where, those who really did well, they are. And there are these amazing lines that we know. It says, just simply look at the difference between us as sentient beings and look at Buddha. Where is he or she, Buddha's enlightened being, right? Where are they? And where are we? what is this big difference? They are so happy and positive and perfect, whereas we are deluded and, a lot of headaches and problems, What's the big deal between us, So if we look at the difference between enlightened beings, transcendental bodhisattvas and ourselves, that difference will answer the question, speak for itself.
No, that any darang shoking gerse. Ara chamal ani shinken chole ne gerse ta pensi to end up. Machine it doesn't conversions.
So that's like my prepping you for, to continue the teachings based on this text. And I know many of you have heard this and you know this already. So in which case, I'm just kind of giving you a friendly reminder here, right? I'm not teaching you anything new. But then people who are new to this, well, then you are learning something new. You are getting new information.
Tangaran sole, dor duna, sendile tanda big mambo chiaros, your day, nani tak, he could garrison, children was.
So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to get across to you is that, we have, zillions of things to do. We can be busy and caught up with, endless stuff. But perhaps the most important thing that we can do for ourselves and others, for this life and for future lives, is to cultivate spirituality, meaning to transform our state of being into something positive. So I'm sharing this thing so that we have a chance to reflect upon these things, and we do need, all of us need to contemplate and reflect on these matters, If we get into the habit of just listening once and then not thinking about it, then slowly, things have a tendency to disappear, vanish, and then nothing is left in our state of mind. Yes. So then there's the Tibetan metaphor of it is this animal we call tremor, which is more like a big bear, and who's just trying to catch this hibernating animal, right? And what happens is you catch one and you put it under your butt, then you go and grab another one because you lift your butt, that goes away. So ultimately, you thought you caught so many, but at the end you just only have one because, you just keep on. No. I'm being very generous. Geshe said there's nothing at the end except empty, because you put the last one under your butt and then you go after another one, then that's gone too. So there is nothing really at the end, So we might end up doing that, doing a lot of accumulation of information and intellectual stuff, and but at the end, well, now you got the picture, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that casting sounds humorous.
Okay, so let's return to this wonderful text called, a collection of, advices from the Kadampa Geshes.
Tandina le re ani mangbu jindu sin ta kandi hyunge mangbu chadi re. Ni janjab ma kandi hyunge ka kan manda hyunge jan yang ji ni go jian de ni mangbu yores. Ni de ngara zo te pento chembo res. Rang to le be uni jongda pang le che chembo do pas.
This wonderful text is more like a collection of question and answers, right? Q&As. And so we find many different disciples asking questions to great masters, and they're giving their responses to them. And sometimes we might even find redundancy here and there, but it's not thinking, oh God, my gosh, it's again repeated here. But sometimes repetitions are what we need, for our reflection and mindset. So we really want to pay close attention to the messages contained in these statements.
Ina yerba se ta longba jo cha ye ba yin sar ba yerba xiang zui se kong yu se de ta re kong ge chen le yerba se de sa jiang meng xie xiang zui nan se ge kurang ge xie ne de ka na yes ka re se na o kol se ngaran cho se o kol se de da ning ba xing ngaran cho o kol ning ta ba ne ta ba den de nian na se ngo ne zhong ne ge ta ba den yi ge xian ke ji yin na se ta ba den nian na So this
Now we are beginning with a new section here, but it seems that really it's not. No, it's more like a statement rather than a question answer. Nobody really asked this question, but a master by the name of Xiangzun, and because he came from a place called Yerba, which is the Tark Yerba in central Tibet, so it's called basically the Xiangzun from the Yerba area, and he said. And wokal, which is for the Tibetan language students, right? Wokal is a very archaic word, which means us. Those of us are those who really, from the depth of their heart and mind, are seeking freedom or liberation, nirvana. So what they or we need to do is that every day we really need to think about impermanence and death and dying. We should not let our mind be separated from the awareness of death and dying and impermanence of life and things.
So
he says here, Medaba Yila Samba means we engage our mind in the reflection of impermanence and should not let our mind be deviated from that, separated from that reflection. In Lamrim treatises, Lamrim is a Tibetan term which means stages of the path, so it's a genre in Tibetan Buddhism, practice guide. It is said that of all the footprints of animals, I believe, those of an elephant are the biggest. Of all types of what we call awareness, that of the impermanence is very powerful awareness.
Je tangi na langbo chi je cho chu ba se ta langbo ta ga lang ji de pa ba de maris langbo ji kha ke ke de bak se ta jan yin je tang ga je ji sung do wa de le ani ko do se langa ta le ani ti kar se guru ta da ta ten de me ta shu ta 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 ran tun pe langa tu ya ko ye me tu se top ko ngi ki thong go so that the language is in Rohu, Jeta Ten Chimina, and the Langa Ducha Tendeta and Rosamarava Tendetanga, Nishunguyama.
Maybe I need to explain a little bit this whole metaphor about the footprints of an elephant, We're really not talking about the ordinary elephant that we know of, But this is a case of a very special, rare kind of elephant. And it is said that these elephants of this particular species, they have this extraordinary sensory power that they could detect before they start their journey what is within the 500 yojanas, so make it 500 miles, I guess, And they could detect whether there are any risk on the path, any enemies that they could attack. They could sense it before they start the journey. So they kind of scan it through. They got that great technology in their mind. So they scan it through and they say, okay, this is a very no danger zone and comfortable path. So then they follow that. So if those people who know such elephants, if we follow the footprints of those elephants, so we have a very smooth journey, with no risk and no danger.
Matabin the shit around Yabina, and it tumble train go to Zubanes or Tene, Tamashi Padele, Taya Krasota, and in road way, Tanguir.
So if we were to follow the footsteps of these elephants from the start of the journey to the end of the journey, we will have no difficulties because they already detected everything, scanned, right? So in the same way, if we cultivate this awareness of impermanence of life, then from the start of our practice to the completion of our practice or the completion of our spiritual journey, we will have a very smooth, if you will, smooth, travel on the spiritual path.
When I sang it, the church Tambo Sunday, Mataba Con Go Joseph. The Hana Yakun Yang de Kalama, Mataba soon, 아니 군양인데 도시는 종을자 그 첨부인비 준시다 망보여를.
There are many reasons, why we attach so much importance to realize impermanence of life and things. When our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, right, he started his first teaching, we call the first sermon or the first teaching or the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma and all of that. One of the things he spoke first was about impermanence. Right, when he spoke about the Four Noble Truths and the characteristics of the Four Noble Truths, he spoke about impermanence. So that shows he set his teaching, with impermanence. Then at the end of his life, when he decided to pass into parinirvana, the end of his teaching, the last teaching, if we could say it, is the teaching on impermanence. So that shows he began with impermanence and he concluded with impermanence. So that shows the importance of, cultivating awareness of impermanence in our life and for spiritual development.
No, so that. 해석이 되면 나라 좀 미긴달 내버셔야 되는 된 말이야.
Let me say this, if we really constantly, kind of be aware of, death and dying, I don't think we really ever have a time or think about, harming somebody else. If we know that life is very limited and so much uncertainty in life, impermanent, I don't think we dare to, go and poke our nose in others' life and, make them miserable.
The check you done, 해당 control you today, 통배이네야. The check the control 시에 배는 해갈라면 처음에 답은 오늘 돈이 딱 근데 이건 저디에나 근데 그 아니 그래서 the check 당 control 그 아니
Awareness of impermanence of life, death and dying is a very powerful antidote. It can temporarily counteract other forms of delusions that we have. If we have this really deep reflection of impermanence of life and things, then even if somebody goes crazy and mad with us, that power of the awareness will prevent us from getting mad or angry with the other person, or that kind of awareness will prevent us from getting obsessively attached to cling to other things. Just think about that. We're at the end of the life and we are sure to die. Well, there could be 100 things that are really irritating and upsetting and very attractive. Do you think we're going to get attached to those things and going to get mad and crazy with them? It's very unlikely. You see, when we are really aware of what is happening now and how much time is left.
다야 난지 상도 지금 가르세 맞아. 이 메타바레스. 이 메타바레스. 켜 메타바다 메타바니부터 쳐버려.
Well, we often, maybe this gets us thinking more about the Tibetans in the expressions. There are a lot of Dharma things come into Tibetan ordinary expressions. We say, that's impermanent, But one thing we really need to differentiate, perhaps, or maybe understand is mitaba, which is impermanence, and chiva mitaba, impermanence that is related to death and dying. Is death and dying as if you will, a special case of impermanence.
Do you put in Jodosia to some tabar was in a day? They have a change any rank any choa matapa or there never choa. Namching Hemesanta, Namching Hemete, here couples.
We know that seasons change, time change, but that much knowledge about how things change is not really meant we understand what impermanence is, or we have a realization of impermanence. Even if we know that seasons change from one to the next, or the times change, we may not have thought about the impermanence of our own life, death and dying. So which means we could still be grasping at permanence of life, And so that might be very intact, because we never think about the certainty of death in our life. We never think about the uncertainty of time of death, and all of those things, see. So, those two things may not be connected. We may not connect the dots together, and there may not be much effect on our own life.
Rank moderate nimba chavi the hakover, Jiguet hakover, Dolo nimba chanita, the Sava Nyoguet hakover, the Ina, Rampe, that Nama you have a Tara did something with us.
I think really we have this notion of how we have quite in some sense, sensitive to some extent, how things are changing around us, the things we own, right? We know when we buy a new car and how it ages, it's old. I need to do the oil change, I need to do the, whatever maintenance thing, blah, 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 all this thing. Oh, my car is now really getting old and making all these noises. But we really never think that we age along the way or change as well, And so this is what we seem to be happening, that we know that we buy clothes and now they get old, they don't fit us, then we go and buy new ones, okay? But then we don't realize that all the things have changed with us, and that's what I'm talking about. We really need to bring this sense of impermanence. If we do have something, bring home, right? And we have to understand that we are as impermanent as all these things we're talking about. My car is getting old, my clothes are getting old and don't fit me, and my house is getting old or whatever,
No, so that matabat those things and never kill some house. They don't done nanching me some. Never kill some, but today that's really hard. How good. So this like awareness of impermanence is very powerful in motivating us to bring the positive changes within us. So that's why we need to think about it, Maybe relatively speaking, it's easy for us to understand that certainty of death, right? We know that one day we are going to die. Probably that we all believe that, okay? One day we are all going to die. What is the mystery about that, right? But where we really have a difficulty, the challenge we face is the time of death is uncertain. Nobody can predict it. It could happen any time, see? And we really don't pay attention to that. That thing told the Sambata Shevatis, rank Sambata, some shares of Sundo, some shares rank Sambatang, and Yunga Shevatis, probably regular never shall go soon. And so here the great master Shangzun tells us that every day we really need to reflect on death and dying and impermanence of things if we truly seek liberation or freedom, right, from suffering. And so as we cultivate that mindset, we also need to modify our behaviors, if you will, behavioral actions. And he suggests, and he talks about what is called Pakwe Rikshi, which literally means the four things of a transcendental being. So I would simply call it like the four simple disciplines or actions of which are ways of life of a transcendental being or an Arya. And here the master is directly speaking to monastics, monks and nuns. How should they live their way of life? Because that's related to what is called the four simple things or the actions of Aryas or transcendental beings. And as you will see later that one may not be a monastic practitioner or we are lay people, but we could also find these qualities of actions, simple actions, which, are concordant with the simple things of a transcendental life. We may not live as simple as a monk or a nun, but at the same time, we can simplify our lives. 남자 다 컨디션 뉴욕에서 전주 응행원 좀 실잖니 타니스 마흥와 지고다 타니 양탈을 많은 거 잡히셔 제베 건강할 일 그랬는 거지 독자 제베 배 잡도 잡을 주시는 시지네 타니스 마흥와 지시 So
what are the four simple things of an Arya or transcendental being, if you ask? The first one is called I call it the simple clothing for the monastics. So monastics, they wear robes, as Geshe and our monastics are wearing here. There's the yellow, robe on top of that, and there is another version of that you don't need to know. And but those robes have to be simple. Simple in the sense that we try to avoid the two extremes. Case that they don't make the robes so expensive and top of the quality and kind of a modeling type clothes. Why do you really need that much expensive clothes? You're a monk and nun. But you don't want to be too on the other extreme in the sense that your clothes are kind of a raggedy thing. Everything is falling apart. It's just pieces like, stitched together, You don't want to be that poor either. So you're avoiding the extremes of too much poor and too rich or flashy or whatever, but just stay in the middle.
Oh, yeah. So the time, they rather short the sombre thing, and I Toronto, Tapa, 2000 pay. So
that's what is being said to the monks and nuns, right? Now, how does this apply to the lay practitioners? So Geshe says that, of course, so you are working hard to make your money. So you don't want to spend your money every day, go and buy something, so as if you have to change, wear new clothes every day. Now, maybe that's too extreme on the other side. So no need to change your shoes every day.
So that tiny man was yard, Toronto there, there's a trade 2000 a trade in money. You do check your vision, pay, make a pay, champion with the name, but we kill them.
So even the lay practitioners, we don't go to the extreme of where, we buy expensive clothes and, all of that. Or we become so poor, we're so poor clothes that people are kind of looking down on us, look at those, We don't want to be on those two extremes. Just stay in the middle and have a simple life. So I think the message here for the monks and nuns also, it has lessons we can learn as a lay practitioners, how we can simplify our life,
they are tiny some which pay Tagba and the page as you during the Sen and the Hua marriage. Tagba pay and that was it. Tiny some man say, so you can take a cushion at the Yegurt. They must tell us how I can get go as end of town. I condition change my average. England some set up, can she loot sorts on that talking, loot sorting, the leaky. So you shouldn't do a shelter.
So another simple thing for monks and nuns is the simple food, right? Simple clothing, simple food. What this means is that traditionally monks and nuns, they go on alms begging, right? So whatever the benefactors give you, treat you, simple or whatever food, you just accept it as it is. One does not, the beggars are no choosers, right? So you don't put a demand. I don't eat that, I want that, which one, the two of those. No. You just, whatever is given, gratefully accept that. Because the whole purpose here is to eat a simple food that you can support your life and sustain your life and then do your practice. That's the idea behind that, right? So the extreme case where he is like somebody who is eating, as we Tibetans have a traditional saying, like an 18-course food every day. So you don't want 25-course item every lunch or dinner. That would be too much,
and so what they say. So what any tiny man patient. That were Ricky quick,
So for the lay practitioners here, Geshe says, you do the same thing. You don't develop the habit of eating at expensive restaurants every day, because then all the hard-earned money are spent on the food, right? So you want to avoid that extreme,
And then say, Samani was saying, Rosomata was saying, Togo, Manta was Dena, Yahwa, Kosus, and the New York, Kanji, Zubul New York.
But then the other extreme we need to avoid is because you need to sustain your life, you really need to take good care of your health. So you don't want to be misers either, right? You can't spend money on food, So you just eat food that is, healthy and good for sustain your life, but avoid the two extremes.
That is. Somebody, my child, and choke pasta, Radishuma, my chassis, Melchesi at the Dentan, Yegutan, Titan is socially so that teaching on the great Yoruba, that in my chassis. That English at that time is Mahon with them.
And the third simple thing for monks and nuns that's being said here is I call simple bedding, which means mattress and the blankets and the quilts, so and all of that. So that's again, to avoid the two extremes, not to go for too expensive, not to be too raggedy.
That is transfer Hakogro, that 이것이.
So I think now you can get a sense out of it, right? Avoid the two extremes and just have enough to keep you warm, you know.
다 나의 쇠매라서 요즘 인생에 초해버지 인스. 다 나의 쇠매세다. 다매 나사 소야 그매 가르고 때마도 다 믹스게 배 나사 잔이 매네다. 매 텐데 망본도 손탄 조야다. 텐데 기타 드리시지 매버처럼. 라도 정화초다 텐데 나의 쇠매라서 요즘 인생에 다 강지 소설 괴버때 따따기 마도 델레 타버지다 시주마를 까난도.
And the fourth simple thing suggested for monks and nuns is, you know, to be simple even in terms of taking medications. You know, if you really have certain kind of pain and sickness, of course you do need to take medication for that, but don't, you know, spend all the money to buy all the medicines you don't need it, you know, or just for some extra things, you know.
That money is in a kanji. Then you may average. That in a translation, do some downtown.
Obviously, the money part is, you know, because monks and nuns don't have much money, you know, so that he said, yeah, but don't, you know, kind of accumulate the medicines you don't need it or which, you know, for no good reasons. But now for the lay practitioners, you know, the things avoid is, you know, of course, we do make money, so spend all the money on unnecessary medications or medical treatments, as we call it. And the thing is, Geshe said is like, you know, we spend so much money on, you know, this aesthetic surgery to make us look, you know, slim and beautiful and whatever, that perfect body, if such things exist, you know. So we spend too much money just, you know, cutting things out of the body and fixing it here or, you know, patch it there, whatever. All those things, you know, don't need to do that. Our body is, you know, result of what karma we created in the past. You know, we cannot modify too much with our body, you know, because it's related to karma, you know. So surgery may have its own limitations. And besides, you know, sucking all our money. But
that delay, any major the saying in that, only to need the day any group, just some painting the pay Yakuya, send the Zoju there was.
Well, if we really do have sort of issues with how we look and our body type and whatnot, right? Well, then maybe that should become part of our motivation that, okay, I don't like this body, so next life I want to have a much better body. So do positive actions, karmas, you know, have a better body.
That in the Yana, so Diane Jadina, thereby Chung, Cho here for salt flour, gun flowers, the Yi Sundu, that they can eat.
So the four simple things we talked about in terms of the monastics, you know, but they could also be put in a different sense. Döba have fewer desires as monks and nuns, or even as practitioners. Choksheba, we have to know the sense of contentment. Enough is enough, you know, that's very important. Solawa, that we are not too picky and, you know, choosy and all that. Just, you know, get easily satisfied with simple things. Solawa. And easy like treatment, and Ganglawa is the easy, you know, to take care of.
So that the current Choyo Jetan, any noble Zambota Mango, Zambota, Mang, Yena, the tone Zambota Mango, Hindi Mabachigo.
So even if we do, you know, have access to better food, better clothing, or whatever better qualities, but we have to be really judicious in the use of it. You know, not that because we have access to everything, so we have to overeat or overdress or whatever. You know, but know our limits and, you know, be judicious in the use of resources.
Dina, the being over tanky, Pangba Inskano, the Dina, then the being over tanky Pang said, Chimbal cover was.
And he says, you know, about in terms of monastics, you know, just you are getting rid of all the material stuff, you know, especially for lay practitioners, that's a tough thing, you know, if you get rid of every stuff, you know. But we try to simplify our lives, you know.
Oh, honest, that is it. And they choke here, and no boy, Chung Yung, Yung a choke here by instead. Thank you, sir. That.
So sense of contentment is whatever simple things and few things we have, we really feel happy and contented. You know, we don't go after, rush after, you know, more things and, you know, all that.
다 소하와 세드 단계 기본 초시부터 기본에서 최고당 매차당 가생은 좀 맹은 아니 청중세다 중요장시에 초와 인스가나도.
So that means, we can easily take care of ourselves with simple food, simple clothing, simple bedding, and so forth. Simplify our life.
다 강화와세, 다 강화와세 야공화와세, 생각공, 생각하야 공화. 성념당 예바다 꾸데, 네 청중기 lok행발이다. 다들 강화와세 lok행발생고.
So Gang Lava is more to do with the attitude of, like you see, we have a sense of appreciating every little thing, not to be choosy and picky, that whatever simple things we find, we're just happy with that. So that kind of attitude we're talking about.
다 근데가 아니 파괴 리겔 네베 아니 리겔 네베 강사디 줄라 아니 상주지 소화제세. 상주지 최탐지 네베 다 최탐 네베서 다 근데 강사들 최탐지 아니 상수 소득 다 근데 아니 최탐 아니 네스난다다 시알레 레라보레스 시그리스 가면.
So those who observe those four simple things, or we might call Arya's disciplines, so they will be very successful in cultivating spiritual qualities, and we could often talk about what is called 37 factors harmonious with enlightenment. That's a mouthful to say for a translator. All the things, qualities we need to cultivate to reach enlightenment, so it will be much easier to cultivate those qualities if the life is simplified, in the way we just talked about. So if one were to abide by those simple actions or disciplines, right? Never means you abide by those disciplines or actions, then one, would be have more success in cultivating those qualities related with enlightenment. Maybe we should look at these four simple things from the opposite side. If we don't keep those simple things, so then what happens? What's the big deal, right? So if we remain very attached and clinging to all kinds of things of this lifetime, okay, so we don't want the simple things, we just are very attached and we need everything, then what happens is we might find ourselves getting involved in doing a lot of negativities, okay, a lot of negative actions. That's how now we become a source of, a container, if you will, of negative karmic actions.
The current is not say, they want to see it, send the Heni, send the Chane, to Shavin, Chavina, and then Pugby Rigi, Losot tomato, Pugby Hill need to Rigil need to Marisons and be consulted Dutch real neverest.
So the point here is that if we are very attached to the worldly concerns of this lifetime, this life and nothing else, this is what it is. We are so attached, obsessively attached to this. That means we are far away from the simple things we just talked about before, which means our life will be very hectic and busy, and we may find ourselves doing a lot of negativities, and negativities lead us to bad rebirths. You know that. And so, let me see, I lost the track of my...
Digital never answer.
Okay.
McGill, Diva McGill, and that do you see at the Diva McGill?
No.
Diva McGill, Jibaina, the digital never is.
So another expression being used is, if we are so caught up with chasing the material things and all the things without obsessive attachment and so forth, doing a lot of negativities, then it is as if that we are blessed by the devils. Now we are following the way of the devil and the demon and the opposite of the angels. So that's what it is.
그냥 강사를 고심해 버렸대.
No, no, of course, when we talk about devil, we don't mean like, there's X, Y, Z person there, we follow them. We mean in a sense, a metaphorical sense, that instead of following the positive things, now we are under the influence of negativity. That's the sense.
다 뭐걸 지에서 나랑서 첸들 아닌 내가 마방 넣었대. 네 첸디 인데바데 첸들 마게메치 나버다 게고어스.
So anyway, the point we are trying to nail down here is that we have to really work with our attachment to this lifetime. Cut it down, reduce it, get rid of it.
첸디네. 첸디 아니 첸디 인데바데 첸들 아닌 데카데 마방나 첸들 차고도 마방나 새로 yen데야. 새로 yen 샤와 yen 안 차베 아니 차바도 용거레스. So if we get habituated in getting attached to things in this lifetime, you see this kind of the mindset will continue into next life. So next life we will be even more attached to things, and then the whole cycle gets perpetuated, over lifetimes. That's good. Okay. Then that and then that
So we should all try to reduce and get rid of our attachment to life and things of this life, and try to simplify our life by following the 4 simple actions or the disciplines of Aryas. So if we really need to reduce and get rid of our attachment to this life, so how do we do that, right? Is there a way to do that? Is there a method or antidote to do that, right? And so he says, yes, one of the most powerful antidotes is to meditate on impermanence of life and things.
마곤짱 녀마 셰라 첸디 브레차 송세 교계 마다바 곤주 마주나 아니 녀마 셰가네 안데 디 마다바 곤에다가 제 마지나 아니 첸디기 셰갈이 차네 첸데강그 렐로고 레스카나노.
So here it said that if we do not think about, let's say, impermanence at all in the morning, right? So a day start with not reflection, impermanence, or awareness, then the whole day might, go in a different direction, in the sense that, we will be really chasing and following the things of this lifetime. Because when we really don't think about impermanence in the morning, the whole day gets impacted by that mindset that now we are caught up with attachment to things of this life.
말아서 최 중케 저거 첸디 에는 나와데 힘리 다 나기데 마도나 네가 샤와샤마 팽킬레스 최 두디사 샤와샤마 팽킬레 산톤네 군호당네 두고요레스.
One of the reasons why we really need to work with attachment to this lifetime is if we get so stuck in this attachment, let's say we don't think about impermanence and all that, then even if we say that I want to cultivate the spiritual motivation to work for my future lives, it may not work that well, because after all, we are so stuck in our attachment and clinging to this lifetime. In the Sakya tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, they have talked about what is called 4 types of detachment. Now, detachment in a positive sense, okay, not to be naive and indifferent, but detachment in a positive sense. They talk of 4 types of detachment. Shambhashite, separation from 4 attachments. In other words, now the first one is, if we are attached to this lifetime, they said, then we are not a spiritual practitioner. We cannot be a spiritual, person.
That and then mango that and that then the song do. Don't think Jerry Juni any get the revealing give us a Mickey any meeting 망부셔 다 최로버에 거래 아니 가리나 쪽소시 대신도 쉐브레 강가 쉐여를 때 있나다 코란가 아니 첸다가 산노라 단마도 셔셔마산데 쉐가 마쇼서 가디나 콩가나 쇼초랑게 교스다 고교스 초랑 최로야다 검지에 거라고에도 야군도 되래 아니 최지신의 그거 말해서 간나 난도
I remember, right, we really dealt with that anecdotal story about a man, who tried 3 different things because he thought he was doing practice, and the Domdamba comes along and kind of, throws him off. Right? He said, "Sir, Joe," he's very respectful, Domdamba. He said, "It's really nice. You are doing circumambulation, but don't you think it's better to do practice?" And so what really problem he was doing was his motivation was not right. Maybe he's doing it because other people are doing it, or maybe then other people might like him because he's in the circle there. Then the next day he said, "Okay, I'll read Dharma now." And then again Domdamba says, "Sir, it's very nice you're reading Dharma texts, but don't you think it's better to practice, right?" Maybe again his motivation for reading Dharma was not right, see? And then the third time he tried to do meditation of some kind, right? He's just sitting in the meditation, at least looks very nice, meditator. But again, Domdamba says, "Sir, it's very nice to see you in doing meditation, but don't you think it's better to practice Dharma," right? So he really got thrown off, and that's what it is. We really need to check with our motivation. Even if what we do comes under Dharma, action or practice, or we think we are doing one, but if our motivation is not proper and correct, right, what we do might not become Dharma. Okay.
Then that is on cellular tones kanam. Cellular tones that ranki jog sunguyo mare. Same day shagat ton kanam.
So then when he asked for advice, finally he decided to say, "Okay, now I better ask, And then the Domdamba said, "You know what? You need to renounce this life." So meaning we need to get rid of attachment to this life. Renounce this life doesn't mean like go and commit suicide, you're good for nothing now. Don't mean that, just kill yourself. What it really means is don't get attached to this life.
Then Venerable Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen, and the same day in Hawa the Kemba Dogre Kanu, Chunaba of Dukina, same day in Hangin Dogres Kanu.
Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa or Rinpoche also advises us in his works that if we really want to practice Dharma or spirituality purely, untainted in the sense, then we really need to get rid of our attachment not only to the things of this lifetime, but attachment to the things of future lives. Okay, because attachment is, it's not a good thing.
Same day in Hawa the Kemba Dog. And they tell Lendel something in the Shaman Pinjis. No, they can't do.
So if we think about death and dying, impermanence of life, that will temporarily help us to overcome attachment to these lifetimes and things. If we think about how the law of karma and actions works, unmistakably, nobody really need to watch how the law of karma functions here, or being fair or not. It works, perfectly in the natural state. We think about that and understand it, then we will be able to cut off our attachment to things in the future lives. Okay. Of course, everything has to go through a process. We learn slowly. We start practicing slowly. I don't mean that, there's so much things to learn, and we have to learn everything in a day or two and then start doing everything, It's a process we need to begin and we have to follow through. So we would like to spend about 10 minutes, answering your questions. So be kind to be loud so that, Anila doesn't say repeat it to me, because I won't be able to repeat your questions like you can say your questions. So be loud. The camera can record you.
Oh, is it camera?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Too loud people?
I could do both today because we have Tenzin here.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. Then?
Okay, any takers? Geshe is just, trying to be a little, funny. He thinks, he's wondering whether all of us are kind of like, skating on an ice. Meaning like we really didn't go deep into the matter. We're just kind of gliding over the things, smoothly gliding.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
Today is Veterans Day.
Yes.
We're supposed to be, having feelings for our veterans, people who were fighters and soldiers who,
Yes.
went to battle and so
Yes.
on. How does Geshe approach this aspect of
What
how
the-
we should feel about that?
Okay. Okay, sense one. Tiring konzo di mangmi ki mal shin konzo di tudin de wa. Teju tiring yimu de konzo mangmi zo so so ta tie gap da khare ton da lia lue da ma de chen gu ro wa. Za de ken ki kong ba shi zhi de de to kan de sam gu na sa da konzo mangmi zo ton da.
다 ngaran 저기
Ta di ma de wa is
마 다 마음이 챌린데 자기 들전 다 가리기네면 코란스 리방 못 사요 그랬어.
No.
그래서 저 정보랑이었다. 가리기나다 제급 된다 이네 고 딕봇 소수 캐고 그랬어.
First, of course, many of our soldiers are no more with us. They died in the war or battlefield, or they sacrificed their lives. Yes, maybe for our country and all that, but still does not negate the negativities they themselves accumulated. We could do things for our country and everything, but negativity is a negativity. You do it and you accumulate it.
그래서 다디 소수 레 내가 스탑이 남이데 마음 소소소 연구가 세상 나라서 콘줄레 다 가르쳐 그래. 아니 담배는 좀 그래.
So what we can do best now for those who are no more with us is we really appreciate, their sacrifices, but at the same time we acknowledge that whatever negativities they, are created under whatever circumstances, we hope that our good prayers and good wishes will in some measure or way help them to purify their negativities. Because after all, we are responsible for our negative actions. We do it for whatever good reasons, but negativity is something we need to purify. Otherwise we have to face the consequences of the karmic actions.
마가레 현신 좀 차르던 저 상도도니 다도 정말 더 먹기 아 되게 되고 좀 사지 이는 더 신중을 되는 뭔가 나도 많이 잡고 있어.
So in some sense, war is an unnecessary thing in the world, right? If we can make a choice, nobody should want a war, or nobody really should want to having to maintain soldiers and military installments, everything. But in under certain circumstances, somehow all those things exist. Okay? And so only best thing we can now do is hopefully that whenever that is in the future, that slowly we really don't need any more wars and any more ammunitions and any more soldiers, So we pray for that. Yes.
아니 마음 희생해 주저니 이 대상부터 해야 되는 거는.
So of course we pray for those who have soldiers who have lost their lives, and may they find good rebirths, through the activation of their good karmas.
단내성대 마 니든지 칸 마산에 마 타쳐야 돼. 기길 세리셔도 다 타쳐야 돼. 다 맞죠 그래.
And we really truly pray that, from hereafter, that in the future world existence, we can slowly reduce the soldiers around the world and all the ammunitions, and that we really reach a day that all these unnecessary things don't really need to be there, right? We don't need a war. We don't need to kill each other. We don't need to bomb each other. We don't need all those things. So hopefully, down the line, sometime in the future, that, this will all become things of the past,
정말로 용사 가르쳐나 안에 생존 중으로서 샘데 아니 미게 계신다 땡랭아 바사드리스
all things, this war and killing and negativities are basically the root lies in our own state of mind, right? So when we have a negative state of mind, and, this is where everything comes into existence,
샘데 미게 계시지 ran 생기 계시지 샘데 미게 계시지 미게 때 대상 거로.
So our mind, when it's influenced by negativity and delusions, so our mind is run by the negativity and delusions, and we as individuals are run by our mind. You see how now we let mind control us. Our mind is controlled by delusions and negativities. So that's why then things go wrong in the world, right? So we are under the control of the mind. Mind is under the control of the delusions, negativity. So the things we do are really negative things, and then things we experience are negativities.
Huh?
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ole.
I read somewhere that suffering was one of the first things that Buddha talks about.
Mhm.
And I was looking at it, he said one of the second thing was fear.
Mhm.
And I looked for some material on it and I couldn't find very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering what Krishna thinks about fear. He
Sure.
said that Buddha never feared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kurangi develop sebenarnya ane tembege ane sung tangbo del ya ane jitungya kol sung yores niba de ane shenang kol sung yores sigdo ane shenang kol ane deba develop de rama josa ane deba mi sanje imbe chan she kwa ge yo marwa jaza andi kol king ji kasna na sa
한제 겸데 그 까나게 참말로 그런 거 된다 말했어. 생기게 된다 그랬어. 산제 겸데 그 아니 배 네가 먹기 빵지게 참말 빵. 톱지를 참말로 톱차랬어. 그 그런 거야 말이나다 그런 거 송부터 참말로 말한서 된다. 늦어도 된다 송부랬어.
First, I want to say, as you kind of pointed out, that Buddha, as an enlightened being, so Buddha did not have any problems. Whatever Buddha taught or said is all meant to benefit us. He taught all levels of things. He talked about all kinds of situations. It's basically to benefit us sentient beings in those situations.
다
신앙.
현나서 또 해지 가르쳐 간절 동해만 보기 용도 왔어. 동해 때 용사들이 해 그랬어.
So Buddha taught a lot about, cultivating in some sense of fear, but that is related to our own life situations because we are caught up in the situations where our life is characterized by problems and suffering. So we really need to learn to fear suffering, especially its causes. We need to really be afraid of the things which bring us suffering.
So 자 동해지 용사 때 다시 계획과에서 계획사 가르쳐서는 되래 레세 기어랬다. 그 그나 레 레데 니어랬어. 녀마 빌 다 아니 다
겐레니니 송게.
레데 니어랬어.
And so we need to fear the causes of suffering, and categorically speaking, there are two kinds. There's the deluded state of mind or delusions, we really need to fear them. And then there are the, what called the karmic actions which bring us suffering. We really need to fear them as well.
다 레데 잡아 셰발라 레데 넘버 민비다 냐와탄 게다도 둔도 동해 셰고 그래.
So how do we learn to fear negative karmic actions? The way to really do that is when we look at what kind of negative results they bring, right? That's why we often talk about in Buddhism about all kinds of hellish situations, hungry ghost world, all the headaches they have. The really reason is the negativities lead rebirths into those things. If you really kind of fear, okay, I don't want to be in hell, I don't want to be in the hungry ghost world, I don't want to be in even more problem areas, then we stop creating the negative causes or the karmas.
진짜 나중에 남지 세그래서 코와당 소고 동해 이제 시작 봤어. 코 신나 코와를 잡고 싶. 코와를 시원을 잡고 싶. 이 나니에 코와는 시외 나니에 소고 동해 잡고.
And we often emphasize this in our Buddhist practice, especially starting with the refuge, that we said we cultivate the sense of fear with regard to the general suffering of samsara or cyclical existence and the particular sufferings of the three unfortunate states of rebirth. When we really realize the suffering nature and we just, okay, I don't want to get there, that sense of fear or the fright is a positive thing, that can really change our course of action or way of thinking.
딱 그런 게 대블로 가발로 있었나? 물론은 그 때에 안에 년성 동해 삼바시고 그랬어. 신앙이요.
So if you are more interested to find about the sense of fear and stuff like that, if you look through the Lamrim text, especially where we describe a lot about the really difficult situations in the three bad migrations, then you might find more things, related to fear.
코아셔도 세작 동해서 전에 신나 코아가 시 동해서 삼. 이 삼들 전에 슬라이드 동해 하마이지 동해 미 동해다. 전주 삼고 그랬어. 대티 돈아 다이 리드 동아 디다 동 냐외 동해 삼고 그랬어. 근데 삼비나데 나가 큐베 기타셔.
So when we think about the suffering nature of samsara and the specific sufferings of the bad migrations in the context of Lamrim, we really deal with, it doesn't matter in which part of the samsara we find ourselves in, we do find suffering. That should frighten us. We could be reborn as a human being, but we got our human sufferings to deal with. We could be born as a divine being of some kind, but divine have their own headaches too. And we may be born as a demigods, but they've got issues to deal with, Then, of course, those are still the better situations. Now, if we go into the hell and hungry ghosts and lesser kind of animal, bigger issues to deal with. So no matter where we find ourselves in samsara, we will bump into suffering. So if suffering is something we should be afraid of so that we can find way out of suffering. And Geshe says, if you would like to kind of borrow books from us, I guess we may have a simple library somewhere, and people who know, you can borrow it and then read it and bring it back, okay? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, one more. Yes.
But going back on the fear, does that mean then to be afraid of the external world?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in one meditation session that I had, I did start fearing the things, because those are it's the external world that was making me do certain things. And so
does that include
I was afraid. So what does that mean?
Tanda ken shena jese jorwa ngo khobe chida chira samlo dan shena jese de khorang jimchi kom jebde ta de ko jabde mendo se zambling ben di na chilo le ne zhi mangu chungye di shena shibli do sara ba ge ge di samlo chasher ba chagor kom jaye di zambling na ta me de yungo orwa di shena ru ta chagor ba ge
ta ti de zhe ta ngo se pe thone ri chag yor ba dunge ki na jo me dunge chi thong yor ba
no be
zhe ta kai kai mare shi
no
Geshe
says, yes, in our meditation on, such focus, yes, we do include things which happen externally in the world, which really, brings us so much fright. Because this is what we can, kind of access, right, information. And what we have, how much suffering, intensity of suffering and problems we have in the human world, compared to those in the hells and hungry ghosts, it's nothing, relatively speaking, So the scary things happening in the world are like pointers. These are the examples, of how once we get in samsara or stuck, these things happen,
I think what. But the Tasha the Chiraki, Kitchen Yapuris. The Tashi is only that the what tell is strong cake, so you're not something ever something.
So it's important for us to cultivate that sense of fright, reflecting on suffering, problems, situations like that. But our purpose is not to scare ourselves or handicap ourselves like, oh my gosh, the world is a scary place to be in, what do I do? Not to handicap us, but this is like, okay, we find a way, okay, if this is the case, is there anybody who can really, in the sense of eventual, help me to get out of this situation? So that's how we go for refuge in enlightened beings, spirituality, and spiritual community. So, we also need to reflect on the qualities of the three jewels who could help us, that they have the compassion and love, means they are really unconditionally willing to help us. They have the wisdom and abilities to help us, Not that they can literally take us out of suffering, but they can really guide us, and we follow that way, we could be out of fear and out of samsara. That's the whole the purpose behind reflecting on suffering, nature, and sense of fear and all of that. So in the 70 topics on the refuge practice called Kampu Tunjuba, so that's mentioned, as Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, that those who are seeking nirvana or liberation, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the true refuge for those seekers. So I think we'll stop there today. And Annie, did you say something?
Carrie had a question at his hand.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Could you just repeat the four
Simple things?
detachments?
Well, Geshe didn't say it's okay.
He didn't say them.
Shenpa she did again. Not that I cut it off, which I don't do. Okay, so we will list through that. If we are attached to samsara, there will be no liberation or nirvana. Okay? If you are attached to this lifetime, you are not a Dharma practitioner. Right? You got two, right? Yes.
This life was number one.
No, I said if you are attached to samsara, you have no nirvana. That's another one. Okay, so if you want to, let's start it all over. Get attached to this life, you are not a Dharma practitioner. Okay. If you are attached to samsara, you have no nirvana, liberation. 2. And if you are attached to your selfish interests and motives, you will never be bodhisattvas. And if we are, stuck with the self-grasping, you will never understand the view of emptiness. So those 4 are very, very central things for us. And of course, we just kind of quoted from the Sakya tradition, but Lama Tsongkhapa or Rinpoche and other great masters of other traditions have spoken about these matters. Of course, everything began with Buddha, right? If Buddha didn't say it, things shouldn't be made up in the middle. So I appreciate you taking notes, but don't keep in the notes or forget things. Just have to bring into our mind. So there are those 4 things. So I have a whole string of announcements to make, so you will bear with me. November 30th, 30, is introduction to Nyungne, the fasting retreat. Okay, at 7:30 p.m. here. So you want to write it down? Actually, it's on the web, our website. Okay, so you want to visit it? I guess it's www.tdlink.com or something like that. November 30th, Friday, is introduction to Nyungne or fasting retreat in the evening, 7:30. Geshe will do special good for, I think, new people, students. December 1st, Saturday, the real Nyungne practice starts. The fasting retreat starts 6:30, on dot. Okay. Now we are all Americans, so we have the one time, right? No. And then December 2nd, which is Sunday, is the second day of the Nyungne fasting retreat. No Sunday teachings, right? People are doing Nyungne. So retreat begins again exactly at 6:30 a.m. Okay, so all this information are on the website. December 3rd, Monday morning at 6 a.m., the fasting retreat will be officially, concluded, and you will be served light breakfast, and then you can go to school and works, and go back to sleep if you don't need to work. And then, what is it? Okay. Okay, December 9, Tuesday, no, December 9, Sunday, can't be Tuesday. There will be a special speaker, a Tibetan Mr. Pema Chinjor, who was a Tibetan cabinet minister in India, security minister for His Holiness. And so he will share his experiences about living in Tibet and in exile and, on more about Tibetan culture. So he will be speaking here at 1:30 in the afternoon. After Geshe-la's teaching, we can rush for a lunch or something, then come back, if we have time to listen. And where are my things? Here. Prayer request. Prayers are requested for Terry Moran, Fred Landren, Larry Wepper. They all have health issues to deal with, and baby Ethan. Whatever the baby has, issues. So prayers are requested for all of them.
No. Tenzin aso series of zonga tangis.
So as Doreen reminded us of the Veterans Day, this means, we have lost, so many lives of soldiers. And so this is a good time for us to say prayers for them, dedication for them, and together we will pray to Buddha of Compassion, Arya Avalokiteshvara, or chant it in Tibetan, and we recite the 6-syllable name mantra, Om Padme Hum.
Chadong Kole Jave Jabo Tong,
Chendong Gabo Zombe Sanje Dong, Kala Kande, Dela, Tidamba, Jumba Jere, Zama, Chaze, Lo, Omanebe,
Rang choking around so link the church initiative, all attending Sanji Temper Mokitaji in the Nebata. And Joey Gino with Jobe, things the shape of Taman Shuku Cabet, Temper, the 2 Ginos and Bemelu Yonta. And then Chur Dungi, any Ginibata, any candidate show Pomocaliti in a 20 government sent in Nebata. You think you come to the again the Mitibic sort of the Henny, teaching the sort of the Memelu Yonta.
Let us dedicate our collective merit for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great holy masters live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions, monks, nuns, lay practitioners, remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling our spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality.
Ani that drink Karsimam Shinkin Soke, did that shit sang Mam shit sang Kintan, Mother Tamal than Java in which Chadiris. But a single Tamil and Java, Patam, Pamata, Pinja Majivita, Shema Nubi, take them Yunga Martin and Shema Nubi Yamas, the Koran to Pengaran to that Pinja the Chadiris. So that and so any shit sang it and so. And then a song and all over Tony, Jennings, Shiata, and it I didn't get some meal in top. And that tattoo and it are a tomaloga. Dingy wallet on the Sanjay Comarum.
And today is a special day where we remember our veterans. And so we have karmic connection with them as we have karmic connection with all sentient beings. They have been our kind mothers, kind fathers, our best friends, our relatives, and you just name it. Of course, not in one lifetime. That's just impossible. But over many lifetimes, we have become parents and children and friends of each other. So we have that karmic bond and connection with veterans and sentient beings. So with that acknowledgement, we dedicate our prayers and merit for them to find, good rebirths, so that they are able to make meaning out of their precious human lives and pursue their spiritual development and find their way to enlightenment. Last but not least, we dedicate our merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration to liberation or nirvana, and obscuration to omniscient state, and maybe all reach complete enlightened state called Buddhahood very soon.
Thank you.